As Turkey's President Erdogan heads to the US for a nuclear summit, he may be wondering what sort of reception he'll receive. While they are still nominally close NATO allies, tensions have been stirred between Turkey and the US by Ankara's attacks on Kurdish militants, who are seen by Washington as the best bet for tackling Islamic State in Iraq and northern Syria. We have also just heard this morning that President Erdogan will now meet with Barack Obama. This is a late change to his schedule. But now to Gulnaz Aybet, the head of international relations at Bahçeşehir University in Istanbul. Good to have you with us, Gulnaz. So we only just heard this morning that there will actually now be a meeting between President Erdogan and President Obama. That's new on his schedule. What do you think President Erdogan is going to say? What's his priority?
Well, I mean, you mentioned in your report about Syria, and obviously I think for both leaders, Syria will be on the top of the agenda. But there are a number of other things they will be talking about, from Mediterranean energy routes to resurgent nationalism in Eastern Europe, to frozen conflicts in the Caucasus and the entire situation in the Middle East. So I think, whatever, from the point of view of the United States as well, whoever wins this election, you can see that there are already certain limitations on US foreign policy as well, with what's happening in the Pacific, and as well as US continuing interests with regards to Europe and the Middle East. And they know that they can't control all of these regions politically and militarily in the same way that they were able to. So they do need strategic partners, they do need regional partners, and in that sense, Turkey is a very important strategic partner, regardless of the differences they have over some aspects of the war in Syria.
Yes, how does President Obama even begin to overcome the stumbling block that they see the Kurds as being the most effective force against Islamic State on the ground?
Well, the United States have actually been, following a very stopgap, short-term policy with regards to just focusing on ISIS. Obviously, the ground in Syria, in the Syrian war, is very fluid, and we have lots of different factions happening there. Most recently, of course, the Russian intervention, with now we've seen it withdraw, but the Russians have also changed the reality on the ground to some extent. So the US foreign policy is just concentrating on ISIS, and for that reason, they've only focused on the PYD, the Syrian Kurds. But from the Turkish perspective, the PYD is equal to the PKK, which is recognized as a terrorist organization by both the United States and the European Union. And recently, the PKK have really upped their attacks in Turkey, including killing civilians in the major cities. So this is a serious problem with regards to this inextricably linked two organizations, one across the border, which the Americans are relying on as ground forces, and one that's inside of Turkey, which is a terrorist organization. So in this sense, especially since the PKK and its offshoots have increased their attacks on civilians in Turkey, then the United States has to really look at its strategy with regards to using the Syrian Kurds on the ground much more carefully.
Of course, because the attacks on Kurds from government forces have also increased too as well. It's happening on both sides. But Gulnaz, what about just the general tone? Because we're also seeing the White House being more critical of Turkey about freedom of expression and democracy as well, making comments that we haven't seen from them in recent years. The tone has changed, hasn't it?
Well, we've actually, Lucy, I do remember when you interviewed me in 2009, and it was Barack Obama's first state visit abroad to Turkey. And I was only thinking about that this morning. And of course, things have changed since then with the relationship. But I don't think that, for the United States and the West in general, Turkey is still an indispensable strategic partner, regardless of the differences. And, that Turkey is going through this massive transformation, the clues of which were already there in 2009, but they've become much more evident now. And the way I see it, I've only been living here for 2.5 years now since I moved from the UK. This is a transformation that there's no going back. It's going to move forward. And the question is, how does the United States deal and accommodate a changing Turkey? And I think this is the crucial question. And if this rift that's occurring over the Syrian Kurds is going to actually push the United States to look at that question more carefully, I think it's very timely that that's coming at this visit.
Gulnaz, good to see you again. Thank you very much for joining us.